What's up guys, Cass here from GiveWave Studios, and on this one I'm going to show you how to turn all the EVA foam parts that you see here into this awesome Pokemon Zubat prop, complete with removable tail-like thingies at the base, removable magnetically attached wings, as well as a simple cartoon accurate paint job. Let's get it. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is focus on these 8 pieces right here, which are basically going to create the top and bottom of the body, right? The head and the belly, basically. These are going to get glued together this way. You're going to make sure that your registration marks are touching each other as you glue them, and we're just going to heat everything up. I'll do one side with you guys, and then I'll fast forward to the other one. So let's work on one. I'm going to heat everything up. 30 seconds on each side, curve it over my mold here. You can also do this with like your elbow or your knee or anything circular that you might have lying around. Okay, and just so you guys can tell the difference, if you look at my piece, we have this flat piece, and this is what it became on the left, is the curved piece. If I put it down, you can see the difference. It's three-dimensional now as opposed to just flat. Same thing for this piece here. You can tell that it's raised and domed as opposed to flat, and that's what you want to have on all 8 of those pieces. Okay, I'm gonna keep finishing up with this right side. Okay, and now with all 4 of our pieces done, we're going to install our parts. So we're going to grab some contact cement. We're going to put some on our edge. Right? Once your parts have glue on them, you're going to let them dry for about 5 minutes or fan them out for about another 2 minutes, and then we're going to glue them together.
A few minutes later.
Okay, once our parts have sufficiently dried, we're going to go ahead and start gluing our pieces. So we'll start from one end, doesn't matter which end, as long as you are putting your pieces together, you are making sure that they are lining up flush on the surface, okay, and that the registration marks are touching where they should be. And make sure to push or pull the foam to make sure that they align as you go around and put this together. That's one half of our bat done. We'll go ahead and do the same thing for the remainder of our pieces. And now we're just going to put the 2 halves together. And then you're going to just want to push your pieces together, make sure that it's making good adhesion. And then the nicer you make your seams, the less you're going to have to sand and clean all of this up. So that's basically one half of our Zubat. We're going to do the exact same thing for this piece, and we're going to put the 2 together. Before we do that, what I'm going to want you guys to do is to, with the surface of your part facing up, you're going to cut a beveled edge. So from the top towards the inside at kind of like a 45-degree angle. This is going to make it easier for us to be able to fit one on top of the other. Now this is something that you can do afterwards with a Dremel or something like that. But if you can avoid having to do any extra work and just do a quick cut, why not? All right, so you're only doing it on what's going to be the open edges here. So left and right here, left and right here, and then the bottom of this piece here. And then we're going to heat, shape, and assemble just like we did for the first one. Alright, now that we have our two parts completed, you'll notice that one of them is slightly smaller than the other, right? The smaller part is going to be your head, the slightly larger is going to be the body at the bottom. They're almost symmetrical, but they're really not. The bevel that we had in here earlier from our cuts allows us to just kind of tightly put these two together and creates a nice clean seam. Alright, so I'm going to find a position that I like. Okay, this is where it becomes very just kind of like DIY. It's really going to be up to you guys, the angle at which you do this. And with a marker, I'm going to go ahead and trace that perfect alignment so I don't lose it. I'll use a Sharpie instead. There we go. Basically anything under this line, as you can see, is what I'm going to glue to the inside, or should I say is where I'm going to put my glue so I can glue the two parts together. And now that we have our position, we can start just kind of drawing onto this where we're going to want our mouth cut out for Zubat. So basically at this point what I've done is use different colored Sharpies to get a sense of different mouth openings that I want for my Zubat. So this is the part where you get to really customize this and make it your own. You can, if you follow the pink line here, it's a really wide open gap from the head to almost down into the belly. If you look at the blue, this one goes the furthest up the top. It is curved here, comes down, makes a little bit of a lip, and keeps going. And then you have the green line here that's kind of tapered here at the edge, right? Still has a little bit of a lip, but it's more wide than it is tall. So again, different styles, variations, openings. You will get a paper pattern regardless of the DIY kit or the PDF pattern. You will get one pattern of the mouth opening that I'll be doing for this tutorial, but that doesn't mean that you have to do that specific one. You can choose to do something else. Alright, so I'm going to glue my two parts now that I know where my mouth is. Once I've glued that, I'm just going to cut that out. Alright, but before I assemble the two pieces, I'm going to go ahead and smooth out all of my seams. I'm going to use a Dremel, but you can do this just as well with some sandpaper by hand. You just got to go from like a 120 grit up to maybe about a 200 or 320, and just kind of smooth out your seam so that when you paint it, you reduce the chance of all of your lines being seen. Alright. Alright, now with all of my seams smoothed out, I'm going to go ahead and resume with gluing my two parts. I'm going to add my contact cement to my areas, and then once I've glued the two, cut out my mouth. Before cutting out your mouth, make sure you get a fresh blade or sharpen your blade if you're the type that just uses a whetstone to sharpen stuff, and then go ahead and do your cut. That way it's nice and clean. Once we remove the mouth, we can go ahead and press down on our seams and access the inside. That way we can get everything to sit a bit more flush than if it had just created the vacuum and felt like a ball, like when you first put it together. Okay, looking good. We have an open mouth for our Zubat. Now we can go ahead and grab our ears. We're going to heat these up, curve them a little bit, and then we're going to glue them on top wherever we see fit. Okay, so we're basically going from this flat shape to this more curved shape that looks more like an ear. And on this, you can also do that same beveled cut that we talked about earlier. That way, when you glue it to the top here, instead of having this lip here, if we do this bevel cut real quick, okay, instead of having that lip, we can have something that is a little bit more flush, right, to our prop. All right, just so you guys see how much of a curve I'm doing to this, heat the foam up on both sides and really just kind of push your thumb down the middle in order to create this kind of like a channel. Right? You almost want to make the ears much thinner than they need to be. That way they have a good curve on the inside and look very bat-like. Okay, so we're going to have something like this for our ears. And similar to our mouth situation, this is really going to be depend on you guys where you want it to be. Do you want it at the back of the head? Do you want it more at the top of the head? Do you want them oblong? Do you want to give your Zubat a little personality? All up to you. So once you've decided where it is that you want your ears to be, just go ahead and glue them into place and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, and then just to quickly go over it with you guys, when I'm putting down my ear, just kind of following the outlines that I've put for my final positioning, making sure that the bevel sits flush with the back of the head or the side of the head, wherever it is that you decided to put yours. Okay, pushing down on it so I get very little seam. Alright, we're getting somewhere. And now what we'll do is we'll focus on these, whatever these little tail thingies are. So you can do one of two things. You can definitely just glue them in. I feel like if I'm going to take this to a con or transport it anywhere else to display, this will be super cumbersome, especially if the paint like cracks on it or something after the fact. So what I'm going to do is figure out where it is that I want it. I'm going to mark it on the body, and once I have done that, I will cut these out, making sure that my mark or the hole that I cut out is slightly smaller than the thickness of the leg tail thing, whatever that is. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut this out. All right, we'll take our parts out, and then now I can thread this from the inside without having everything go all the way in. I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap material and I'm just going to make a stopper. Okay, go ahead and add our stoppers. 1 and 2. All right, and now we know if we pull this in, we can actually feel when it's reached the absolute edge. And now we have our little Zubat feedy things, and if we're ever taking it somewhere, we can just take them out and not have to worry about damaging them. All right, on to the next step. All right, so now for our wings. So we can do this one of two ways. First thing we're going to do, obviously, is we're going to mark where it is that we want our membrane to be. That way we know where to put our glue. Pretty similar to everything that we've done so far. Okay, and for the most part, what you want is so that these edges just kind of meet flush. So that's what's going to determine the positioning of this spiny thing. Okay, this does protrude just a little bit. Feel free to snip that off if you'd like. And back to the one of two ways you can do this. Now you can, actually there's three ways. You can glue it permanently, which is, again, if you're going to be carrying this around, that might not be the best idea. You can do a similar method to what we did with the tails, right? You can figure out where it is that you want your wings. You can trace where the wing meets the body, make a cutout, slide that in, put a stopper on the end. Actually, you wouldn't want to put a stopper on the end of this because you can't slide this all the way out. Slide it in, and so you can keep it into position or take it out if you need to. The third way that I'm going to do this is once I've assembled everything, I'm going to put an extra piece here on the back that I can add some magnets to, and then I can magnetize the wings and take them off if I need to. All right, so you have options, but I'm going to go with the third method for the tutorial, as the first two are pretty self-explanatory, and you've already seen examples of it throughout the first half of this tutorial. All right, so another thing I'm going to be doing is adding some metal wire. Now you can use hanger wire from like the hangers that you get at the dry cleaners. It's going to be basically the same strength as this 16 gauge wire that I'm using. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut enough to go along the edge of the wing here. That way, once I have it assembled, I can give it a shape and have it hold a particular pose instead of just being straight. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and contact cement my parts together, just like we've been doing for everything else, except that I'm going to have a piece of wire in here that I'm going to sandwich in between the two parts. All right.
Meanwhile,
you can also feel free to Dremel or sand down and bevel the inside of your wings. As you can see here, you can see how much of a soft edge this has, as opposed to just like the sharp edge of a hand cut or something like that. Just a little extra detail that'll make the final product just a little bit smoother before you glue everything together. Alright, so I'll do one with you guys. In case you were wondering, the wire, you need about 19 inches or so to make it all around the wing. So, and if you wanted to, if it's not staying down, you can just put like a bead of hot glue here and there. I'm just going to straighten it out just because it's curved that it's not sitting properly. So right there and right there. So once that's straightened out, it stays where it's supposed to be. And now I can go ahead and glue my spiny thingy. Okay, and we're going to start at the corner edge here, just to make sure that everything is aligned. And with that done, we're just going to follow our outline that we put down earlier so that we know exactly where our parts go. All right. And as you wrap this over the wire, do make sure that the back here is as flush as possible to avoid having to Dremel too much. Okay, so as you can see, flush, flush, flush as I sandwich it together. Okay. Same thing for this back end here. Okay. Just making this flush, and flush, and flush, and flush. And then I'll focus on wrapping it around to the inside. And now that I have this done, you can definitely go ahead and sand these down and smooth them out, get rid of the seams. But one of the cool things is now I have a completely customizable wing that will stay in whatever position I put it in. Okay, so just a small little upgrade, but goes a long way. All right, I'm going to do the same thing for the other one and catch you guys for the next step. Alright, so now both of my wings are now complete. As you can see, I've already added the magnets to this part here, and you can see it could just attach to the Zubat as such. So I'm going to go over the steps I took to get to that point with you guys. So basically, I grabbed an extra piece of foam, preferably a 10mm piece, because I used 10mm magnums. I'll have links in the description on where to get these guys. Okay. If you only have 5mm foam, just double it up. Okay, so glue your two parts to each other. So I put my wing on a scrap piece. I traced the general shape of the wing, probably up until kind of like the halfway point of this panel. Okay, and then when I took this off, I just kind of rounded out that shape. And so what my cutout ended up being was something like this, okay, which I then tapered on the sides, drummeled it down. You can see how thick this is to how thin it becomes, just so it has a smooth transition from the edge to the back, right there. Glued that into place, so I'm going to go ahead and put my outline right here. And once I glued that into place, I went back in with my Dremel and I Dremeled everything on the edge here to kind of give it a softer edge. And as you can see how you can see the seams here, you can't see them here. It's a sharp edge here, but a softer edge here. And so basically just cleaned everything up a little bit. And then once I was done with that, I grabbed the Dremel and dug some holes slightly smaller than the size of my magnet. Used some super glue, plugged that in, slid the magnet out, made sure I reversed the polarity for when I was putting it on the body. And in order to make sure that these aligned, you can take your corresponding magnet out, okay? And then you're going to, obviously this is upside down, but it's just to give you guys an idea. You're going to put it where it is that you feel it belongs. You're going to hold from the inside. You're going to press the magnet onto it. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but you do get a bit of an impression here of where the magnet is supposed to be. And that's good enough of a location for you to Dremel in the holes so you can put in the magnets on the body. Which brings us to this wing. And we have our Zubat. Right. Now we're going to paint this, take it to the paint booth, put some Plasti Dip over everything. I'm going to use some satin blue, basically paint the whole thing blue except the inside, which is going to be black. And then we're going to hand paint the purple onto the wings, give it some a little bit of a cartoony feel to it. All right. And of course, if you have Dremeled or sanded anything before you paint, do make sure you use your heat gun and heat seal everything. That way you don't get an uneven application of the Plasti Dip of parts that have been heated and parts that have not been heated. In particular the wings, because we really don't do any heating to this during the assembly, so do make sure you seal your wings. Any seam lines that you might have Dremeled or sanded, make sure everything is nice and sealed. Alright, we're in the paint booth. We're going to Plasti Dip everything black, probably 2 coats of Plasti Dip, and then we're going to go ahead and do a primer, maybe a light gray or something like that, and then go over it with the dark blue that the final color is going to be. Let's get it. Alright, so now that I have all of my parts painted, see, nice finish on all of my pieces. I have 2 shades of purple, a darker and a lighter, that I'm going to use to paint the inside of the wings and the inside of the ears. So nothing too complicated, just pull up a picture of Zubat. You'll notice that the membranes here stay this blue color. This gets painted purple. The inside of the ears gets painted purple, and then we'll add the teeth to finish up our build. Alright, we finished painting our Zubat, and now I'm just going to grab some foam. You guys will have the pattern of the teeth that I'm about to make right now, and it will also come in your DIY kit. Just kind of doing this freestyle for the time being. Alright, so I got 1, 2 teethuses. Alright, got my 4 little teeth, and then I'm just going to grab some super glue. Notice that I have cut the teeth at an angle, that way they face inwards when I glue them into position. So again, this is one of those things that you're going to decide what fits best, either wider out or closer in, however you want your Zubat to look. Alright, we have our teeth glued into place. Depending on how you want the teeth to protrude, if you want them to come out, if you want it to sink in, you just have to cut the teeth at different angles. So now for the final step, let's just go ahead and assemble our guy. If you did do magnets, do be sure to take off any paint that might be on the magnet, because if you do leave paint on there, eventually the paint will glue to itself and you might end up ripping out your magnets. So here we go, wing number 2, wing number 3, and there we have it, a life-size Zubat. Alright, and that is it. That is how we create our EVA foam Zubat with magnetic removable wings and tail. And you could probably even put a little bit of storage in there or something like that. Or you can make them supersized, make them like a trick-or-treat. Kids can put their hands in, grab candy. Possibilities are endless when you have the patterns. You can make this as big or as small as possible. This is fairly decently sized. I'd say it's about 27 inches wide, wing to wing, and about with the tip of the leg tail or whatever it is, it's about 20 inches tall. So 20 by 28, fairly large prop. But I do plan on doing some more Pokemon stuff on the channel. The patterns, as mentioned previously, are available on the GiveWaveStudios.com website for download. Let me know in the description if you'd like to see any particular Pokemon. I'm probably going to do the starters, Charmander, Squirtle, and Pikachu. But after that, I have fun making these little creatures. So if you guys have any particular Pokemon you'd like to see, let it be known in the comments. Maybe I'll get around to it at some point. Alright, this has been Cass from GiveWave Studios, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers!